If you're a bloke over 60 and you're still having a go at yourself, I need you to hear this, because there's something almost nobody tells you. And mate, it could be the one thing that's quietly weakening your erections, dulling your sensitivity, and chipping away at your confidence. Not because you're doing it, but because of how you're doing it. G'day, I'm Dr. Zoe Mitchell. I've spent more than 20 years helping older men across Australia get their spark back, their energy, their intimacy, their strength, and I can tell you straight up, this is one of the most common issues I see in my clinic. Week in, week out. But it's also the least understood. Most blokes think masturbation is either good or bad, black or white. But the truth is a fair bit more complicated than that, and way more important than you might reckon. Because while self-pleasure can actually be beneficial for your health, it can also slowly undermine your performance, your hormones, your circulation, and even your connection with the people around you if you're going about it the wrong way. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 hidden risks of masturbation after 60 that most doctors never bother explaining. And I'm not just going to leave you hanging with a bunch of problems. I'll show you how to turn this private habit into something that actually protects your prostate, improves blood flow, supports healthy testosterone, and strengthens your intimacy. And before we wrap up, I'll share with you a simple 7-second technique I give to my patients to help them regain firmness and drive, safely and naturally. No prescriptions needed. Let's get into it. Because your health and your confidence deserve the truth. Now, before we kick off, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on important health info designed specifically for men over 60. And if this video resonates with you, drop a 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, chuck a 0. I genuinely appreciate your feedback. It helps me create stuff that actually matters to you. Right. Let's talk about the first risk. And it's one I've seen quietly erode the well-being of countless men. It's not about your body. It's about your connection with the world around you. Risk number 1 is social isolation. I remember sitting across from a patient of mine, a 72-year-old retired school principal from Brisbane. He had this quiet heaviness about him, the kind that doesn't come from age but from not being seen. After a bit of small talk, he leaned in and said, "Doc, I haven't touched another person in months, but I'm still taking care of business on my own. Is that bad?" That question stuck with me. Not because of the act itself. There's nothing inherently wrong with self-pleasure. In fact, when it's done with intention and balance, it can be a healthy part of a man's life. The problem is when it becomes a substitute for intimacy instead of a support for it. A lot of blokes in their 60s, 70s, even 80s get pulled into quiet routines. A solo release becomes a comfort, a habit, a way to feel something, even just for a moment. And slowly, without realizing it, they stop reaching out for connection with others, emotionally, romantically, even socially. Masturbation fills the gap until the gap becomes a canyon. This isn't just about sex. It's about the slow, painful withdrawal from life, from hugs, from laughter, from eye contact, from feeling like a man, not just a retiree or a patient. I've seen men lose the desire to date, to reach out, to engage, simply because solo pleasure became easier than facing the vulnerability of real connection. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Physical touch is more than pleasure. It's medicine. It keeps your emotional circuits firing, your testosterone engaged, and your self-worth alive. When you stop reaching for others, your world starts to shrink, not because you're getting older, but because you've stopped believing anyone wants what you still have to offer. So if you've noticed yourself pulling back, if your private life has become your only source of connection, that's not failure. That's a signal, a reminder that you're ready for more, and that it's still possible, no matter how long it's been. Reconnecting doesn't have to mean dating again or chasing romance. Sometimes it starts with something as small as calling an old mate, joining a local club, or striking up a yarn with someone new at the bowls club. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's being seen, being heard, being human again. Now, while emotional distance is one hidden danger, the next one hits closer to home. Your body. And most blokes don't even realize they're causing harm until it's too late. Risk number 2 is skin micro-injuries. Not long ago, a patient in his late 60s came to see me with a concern he was almost too embarrassed to mention. He said, "Doc, I've been noticing irritation down there after, and it's been happening more often lately." I could hear the worry in his voice, but I could also tell he felt like he should have known better by now. Here's the thing, the skin on the penis, especially as you age, becomes thinner, more delicate, and slower to heal. Your body loses some of the collagen and elasticity it had in younger years. Add decades of friction to that, and it's no surprise that many older men develop what we call microlesions, tiny tears or abrasions that can happen during masturbation, especially if you're going too hard or not using proper lubrication. Most blokes don't notice it at first. A bit of redness, a slight sting afterwards, maybe some tenderness for a few hours. But over time, repeated micro-injuries can lead to inflammation, irritation, even scarring. They can make sensitivity worse, not better. And in some cases, they open the door to bacterial or fungal infections that thrive in warm, moist environments. The worst part is, a lot of men think the discomfort means something's wrong with them, their hormones, their nerves, when really, it's just their technique that needs adjusting. Masturbation isn't supposed to hurt, and if it does, that's not a sign you're broken. It's a sign your approach needs to evolve with your body. So what can you do? First, be gentle. You're not 25 anymore, and that's not a weakness. It's a reason to treat your body with more care and respect. Second, always use a good quality water-based lubricant, not Vaseline, not spit. A proper lubricant reduces friction, prevents tearing, and actually helps preserve sensitivity over time. Third, slow down. You're not racing the clock. It's about connection, not completion. I often tell my patients that this stage of life isn't about less pleasure. It's about smarter pleasure, the kind that respects the body and honors the years behind it. There's no shame in adjusting how you touch yourself. In fact, there's power in it. You're learning to work with your body, not against it, and that's what real strength looks like at this age. Awareness, not avoidance. Now, if friction and irritation are warning signs you can feel, what about the dangers you can't? What if I told you there's a hidden risk that doesn't affect your skin but rewires your brain? One that silently trains your body to stop responding to real intimacy altogether. Risk number 3 is desensitization. He was 68, sharp as a tack, still working part-time. And yet he sat in my office, looking defeated. "Doc," he said, "I just don't feel things the way I used to. I can get there on my own. But with my wife, it's different. I don't know what's wrong with me. I see this more often than you'd think." And it's not always about low testosterone or circulation. Sometimes it's what I call the silent conditioning of the nervous system. You see, when a man masturbates the same way over and over, same grip, same rhythm, same pressure, same fantasy or screen, the brain and body start to associate pleasure only with that specific pattern. It's like carving a deep trench in the ground. Every time you pour water, it follows the same path. After a while, it forgets how to flow anywhere else. In sexual terms, this is called desensitization. And for men over 60, it often shows up as difficulty feeling aroused with a partner, needing more intensity to get the same result, or struggling to climax without recreating a very specific solo environment. What used to feel natural now feels like work. And that brings confusion, frustration, even shame. But it's not a moral failing. It's not even a medical problem. It's neurological conditioning. And the good news is, it can be unlearned. Start by changing how you touch yourself. Vary the speed. Switch up your grip. Explore different positions. Try using your imagination instead of relying on external stimulation. And most importantly, slow down. Don't rush to release. Allow yourself to explore. By creating variety in your stimulation, you reawaken sensitivity. Not just in the body, but in the brain too. Your nervous system isn't damaged. It's just been overtrained in one direction. What it needs isn't shame. It needs patience, permission, and time to recalibrate. I've seen men reconnect with their partners after years of numbness just by practicing differently. They didn't need pills or procedures. They needed permission to explore themselves with curiosity, not urgency. Now, if desensitization changes how your body feels pleasure, the next risk is even more serious because it can mask something potentially life-threatening. It's something most men overlook and often goes unnoticed until it's too late. Risk number 4 is masking erectile dysfunction. A bloke in his early 70s came to see me after putting it off for nearly a year. He looked healthy, exercised regularly, married for decades, but something was weighing on him. After a gentle conversation, he finally admitted, "I can get hard when I'm alone, Doc, but with my wife, it just doesn't happen." So I stopped trying. That moment was hard to hear, not because he was broken, but because he didn't realize his body was sending him a warning. What he thought was just a small intimacy issue was actually the first sign of something deeper, possible vascular disease, blood sugar imbalance, or hormonal decline. Here's what most men don't know, and what doctors don't always explain. The penis is like a barometer for the cardiovascular system. When blood flow decreases, arteries lose elasticity, hormone levels drop, or nerve sensitivity declines. The ability to achieve and maintain an erection with a partner is often the first thing to change. But because masturbation is usually easier, mentally, emotionally, and physically, many men assume everything's fine. They're still functioning, so they think there's no problem. But that assumption can be dangerous. Masturbation can sometimes bypass the deeper issues. It doesn't require the same psychological or physiological complexity. So while you might be able to stay aroused solo, you could be missing early-stage erectile dysfunction, which could point to heart disease, diabetes, or declining testosterone, all of which are highly treatable if caught early. The truth is, I'd rather a patient come to me with these concerns early than wait until something serious shows up. Because when treated in time, we can improve circulation, restore hormonal balance, and even reverse many causes of erectile dysfunction without aggressive medication or surgery. There's nothing wrong with needing help. What's dangerous is waiting. What's risky is silence. If you've noticed a pattern, erections that are less firm, less lasting, that fade with a partner but persist when you're alone, that's not something to ignore. That's something to explore with a trusted doctor who sees you as a whole person, not just a symptom. You deserve a full life, not a workaround. Risk number 5 is using it as your only emotional outlet. A man in his mid-60s once sat across from me and said, almost in passing, "Some days I just get tired of feeling things. It helps me switch off." He wasn't talking about lust. He was talking about loneliness, stress, boredom, that dull ache in the chest that builds when no one calls, no one asks, and the days start to blend together. And I understood. Because for many men over 60, especially those who are retired, widowed, or living alone, masturbation becomes more than a physical release. It becomes a kind of escape, a way to regulate emotions that feel too heavy to carry. You're not really seeking pleasure. You're seeking relief, trying to quiet the noise. The truth is, self-pleasure can temporarily reduce stress by lowering cortisol levels. It creates a brief chemical cocktail of dopamine, oxytocin, and prolactin, hormones that make you feel calm, safe, even loved. But when it becomes the only emotional outlet, it can slowly turn into a form of avoidance. Instead of facing the deeper feelings, the sadness, the grief, the frustration, you numb them with sensation. And what starts as a coping mechanism can silently become a dependency. You might not even realize it until you stop going out, avoid calls, or lose interest in hobbies. All because it's easier to stay home and feel that brief sense of control. I want to be clear. There's no shame in needing comfort. Every man, regardless of age, needs ways to deal with emotional stress. But if masturbation is your only lever, it might be time to expand your emotional toolkit. Start small. Talk to someone, a mate, a counselor, even a support group. Move your body. Get outside. Create new routines that involve more than just solitude, because as good as an orgasm might feel, it's no substitute for purpose, conversation, or connection to something bigger than yourself. Risk number 6 is guilt and shame. He was 75, a retired minister, soft-spoken and thoughtful. When we started talking about his sexual health, he looked down. His voice went quiet, and then he said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I still do it sometimes, and afterwards, I feel like I've done something wrong. I can't even look at myself in the mirror." That kind of silent shame cuts deeper than most men realize. It's not always about what you do. It's about what you were taught to believe about it. For many men of his generation, especially those raised in deeply religious or traditional households, masturbation wasn't seen as a private act of self-care. It was seen as sinful, weak, or perverted. Those messages stick with you long after you stop hearing them. So even now, decades later, I meet men who carry guilt like a shadow. They don't talk about it with their mates. They never mentioned it to their doctors, and they never questioned whether that guilt was even valid. Instead, it festers. Every time they touch themselves, they feel a brief moment of comfort followed by hours, sometimes days, of internal punishment, not because it's harming them, but because it's eating away at their self-worth. Here's what I want you to hear clearly. There's nothing shameful about caring for your own body. There's nothing immoral about wanting pleasure, comfort, or connection, especially at this stage of life where intimacy might be harder to find but no less necessary. Masturbation, when done with respect and awareness, is simply a form of physical and emotional self-care. It's not a flaw. It's not a failure. It's human. But if you've carried guilt for years, even silently, it can have real consequences. Chronic shame can raise cortisol, disrupt your nervous system, and even diminish your body's capacity for pleasure. It can erode your confidence, cloud your relationships, and make you feel unworthy of the very things you were born to experience. Touch, joy, closeness. So what's the first step toward healing? It's not about changing what you do. It's about changing what you believe about it. Sometimes that means talking to a therapist, especially one who specializes in older adults or has a sex-positive approach. Sometimes it means rewriting the script in your own head, replacing judgment with compassion, guilt with gratitude. You're not broken. You're not dirty. You're a man with needs, desires, and a history, and you have every right to own all of it without shame. Risk number 7 is disconnection from reality. I once spoke with a man in his early 70s who shared something with remarkable honesty. "It's not that I don't want intimacy with a partner," he said. "It's that real life just doesn't do it for me anymore. I don't know when it happened. I just stopped feeling the thrill of real connection." That moment stayed with me, because what he was describing wasn't erectile dysfunction or low testosterone. It was something more subtle, and in many ways, more damaging. Without realizing it, he'd trained his brain to only respond to fantasy, to the controlled intensity of pornography. And over time, the touch, the scent, the voice, the emotions of real life just couldn't compete. You see, the human brain, especially the male brain, is incredibly sensitive to novelty and stimulation. When it's repeatedly exposed to highly arousing, unrealistic content, it starts to recalibrate its reward system. It craves the extreme, the dramatic, the impossible, and slowly, it stops responding to the natural, the gentle pace of true human connection. For men over 60, this risk is especially real. Because as life slows down and loneliness creeps in, the temptation to escape into the digital world can grow stronger. There's no judgment in that, only understanding. Screens don't reject you. They don't require vulnerability. They give you a predictable hit of stimulation. But what they often take away, without you noticing, is your sensitivity, your presence, and your ability to be moved deeply by something real. What starts as a simple visual aid can become a dependency that makes connection harder, not just sexually, but emotionally too. But here's the good news. This kind of disconnection is reversible. Your brain is plastic, meaning it can change. You can retrain it. Start by stepping away from artificial content. Replace it with memory, imagination, and whenever possible, real, human touch. Read, reflect. Let desire build without needing to satisfy it instantly. Give yourself the chance to rediscover the slower, deeper layers of intimacy. You don't have to live trapped behind a screen. You're not too old to feel something real again. Sometimes the greatest arousal doesn't come from what you see. It comes from what you remember, what you feel, what you hope to experience again. Now, I promised you a simple technique, and I'm not going to leave you hanging like some other videos do. Here's the 7-second technique I recommend to my patients. It's called the squeeze and breathe method, and it's designed to restore blood flow, improve control, and rebuild sensitivity naturally. When you feel arousal building, pause. Take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. Then gently squeeze the base of your penis for 3 seconds, while slowly exhaling. Release. And repeat. This does 3 things. It trains your body to slow down and stay present. It encourages healthy blood flow to the area, and it helps rewire your brain's response to arousal, moving away from urgency and toward awareness. Do this a few times during each session, and over the weeks, you'll notice improved firmness, better control, and a deeper sense of connection with your own body. No pills, no gadgets, just you, your breath, and 7 seconds of intention. So there you have it. Masturbation after 60 isn't good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, how you use it determines whether it strengthens you or slowly wears you down. We've talked about real risks, from social isolation and desensitization to masking serious health issues, emotional dependency, guilt, and disconnection from reality. These risks aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to wake you up, to give you the awareness and permission to care for yourself better. Because this stage of life isn't about giving things up. It's about doing them differently, with more intention, more care, and more wisdom. Your body still responds. Your desire still matters. And with a few small shifts, your private habits can become a source of strength instead of shame. Look after yourself, fellas. You've earned it.